Hi, welcome to Mamas and Mimosas. I'm Janelle,
I'm Marianne.
And I'm Roni.
and today we're talking about sibling rivalries, what we do when our kids argue, how we try to keep the peace in our home, whether we think birth order affects personality traits, and our opinions on favoritism. So grab your mimosas, pop in those headphones, and let's dive right in. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my god, it's gonna get deep, guys.
A shit show, a pure shit show. It literally takes a village.
I don't know if it was dirty or clean.
Oh my god.
Bad mom, like
yeah.
the movie. Yes, because I'm shining. Woo! That was good, guys.
Before we start, we want to thank you for screenshotting the last episode and tagging us. You don't know how much that helps our show reach other mamas who need a support system. So seriously, thank you guys.
So let's just dive right in. Did you guys argue with your siblings growing up?
So for me, you know what? No, I didn't. We didn't really argue. Me and my sister were 5 years apart, and we don't have the same mom. We have the same dad. So she, growing up, we didn't live together. She would come visit often, like on the weekends and stuff, but we didn't have too many fights, so we didn't get into a lot of arguments. No, not at all. What about you guys?
I did growing up.
Opposite.
But we are also 5 years apart.
Really?
And yeah. I don't know. We've always bickered. I don't know. But I don't know if you talked to my brother. Like, I don't know if he felt that way, but I always knew, like, maybe sometimes he would just mess with me just to, like, F with me kind of thing.
Wait, is he younger than you?
He's older, so he's 5 years
Okay.
older,
So
and
you're
then
the baby.
I'm the middle, and then we have my little sister that passed away. So we were always forced to play with each other almost, like when we didn't have our cousins coming around. But when we were together, we were always fighting. Like, but it's all, I want to say it's because he was like picking on me on purpose. Like we would do he would say like, let me do wrestling moves on you, or I don't know. I just like, and then it would get to the point where like he would hurt me, or like, and
That's
we
called
Turn into a
playing.
fight.
That's called playing.
so, and then yeah, we just, as I got into high school and got older and older, I remember like we would still bicker because I would like just, I don't know, like I want to say that he would get mad that I would get things before he got them, or like, like I got a car at a younger age and he had to wait like an extra year kind of thing, like just little. And I would like argue with them like, you favor him more than me. Like it was, I always felt like it was like my mom and my brother against me kind of thing.
Really?
Oh,
So like
and
there
then
was,
yet he felt like you were getting
I don't
more.
know. I never really asked him, but like maybe like when we were little, he would probably say like that he was just effing with me just because he was the bigger sibling.
Okay.
But then I don't know about like, it could have been my teenage hormones too, just being a brat, and I don't know. But yeah, we bickered a lot growing up.
Roni, did you say that your sister lived with you?
No, she didn't. I think
Oh,
that's
so
probably
that's why you guys-
why we didn't. I'm sure two girls living together, it would have for sure been an argument. But because we didn't live together and she was like already about to graduate high school, when she did come down to stay with us for a little bit, she was already like a senior. I was just about to go to high school or in high school, so we didn't really.
So you didn't have to share clothes or anything like that.
Nope, we're like total opposite. Like total opposite. We could never fit each other's clothes, so we never wore each other's clothes. I know that sounds like, okay, sisters, really, we should, and we'll get into that. But no, we didn't really argue.
You're lucky. I'm like Marianne. Like there was 5 of us.
Yeah,
And I'm the middle.
sure.
I'm the middle. I was the first girl. So there's 2 older boys, and we're all like 4 or 5 years apart. The last 2 are only 1 year apart, but all the rest of us are like 4 to 5 years apart. Oh, and the first two are only a year apart too. So that's kind of weird. Yeah, I just realized that. But yeah, we fought all the time. Like we you know what? It was one of those things that like we would fight, but because we knew we were going to get like in so much trouble, we would like low
So
key fight. Yeah, because if you got too loud, all of us were going to get in trouble. So it was like a lot of
a
like
secret fight.
secret fights, blackmailing. Oh my God, blackmailing. I remember, so I used to wear like glasses, reading glasses.
Hmm.
And like my younger brother who has special needs, he would always get into my backpack and break it. He just had this obsession with breaking my glasses.
In your underwear. He just likes messing
And
with
yeah,
your
he just liked messing with my shit. And I would get in trouble. I was in like the 3rd grade and my mom would be like, well, you didn't put your glasses away. And I'm like, this kid goes in my backpack and opens up my case and
Try
breaks my
explaining that to a
glasses.
mom in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
She's gonna be
And
like,
she's
no.
just like, well, you should put your backpack away. I'm like, it's in my closet. So I would go forever with hiding my broken glasses because I knew my mom I was gonna get in trouble, you know? So I feel like it worsened my eyes. Like my sight was just awful because I couldn't see and I would hide it from my parents. And then my sister, if she so happened to find my broken glasses, she would be like, you better do this for me or else I'm telling mom and dad that your glasses
Guess
are
what I
broken.
found?
So she was the queen of blackmailing. Oh my God, she would drive me crazy. But it was things like that. Like we were the only girls with 3 guys. So we would fight the most. And then I would fight with my older brother here and there. But like for the most part, I always wanted to like do what he said because he was cool to me. So I would just like, I tried to like do whatever he thought was cool, you know?
Mhm.
But with my sister, yeah, we definitely fought a lot. Okay. But so now, do you guys fight as adults?
No, now we're like BFFs.
Okay, hold on. Before we go to adults, would your parents do when you guys would fight? Like, would they let you guys fight it out, or would they stop you guys, or would you guys get in trouble?
We would get in trouble. Well, it was just like growing up, it was just my mom raising us. So she was raising me and my brother, and then my sister who had a disability. So she like had a lot on her plate. So when we would argue, she would just like flip out just to shut us up kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
so she would just get pissed, like come in and swinging whatever she had.
Oh, what about you, Ronnie?
No, we didn't. We didn't argue, so it was no getting in trouble. I wouldn't have nobody to argue with. So
Oh, that sounds
But
so nice.
it does sound so funny, but like I grew up also with my little cousin she's like 4 years under me, 3 or 4 years under me, and we're really close. My little cousin that's always like around. And we grew up together and we would argue like all the time. Like I feel like in a sense she was like a sister growing up because we lived together, like we went to the same school, we would have to dress alike, everything. So we definitely argue, but with my actual sister, no.
See, growing up, we knew we would get in trouble because of the noise. It was more of like if we were yelling at each other, like my dad would be frustrated with all the noise.
Yeah.
So we would just all get in trouble. But if he would see one of us disrespect the other, he would always be like, teach her a lesson. Teach her not to mess with you. Like he was so pro fighting. Like he was
Are sticking up for yourself.
Yes, sticking up for
Like
yourself. Exactly. Yeah. But like he was so big, like he has all these stories of him like sticking up for himself,
Quote unquote,
Yeah,
allegedly.
he has so many crazy ass stories that he wanted all of us to be like tough and be able to stand our ground and stick up for ourselves. So if like my sister disrespected me, he was like, teach her a lesson, knock her out. One day you just got to knock her out. And I'm like, oh my God, knock her out.
You got one breaking your glasses. Your dad telling you to knock the other one out.
He was
a fun
like
house.
that. But I feel like because of that, it like affected the way that we were growing up, even into adults. Like because then it was like allowing us to be physical. So when my sister would get in a fight at school, he would give her praises, like, "Oh yeah, good. You taught them a lesson." You know, like so it was like looked like good upon, or if that even makes sense. But like he like, you got praises if you fought somebody, not bullied or anything like that, but if somebody disrespected you, they didn't have to touch you, but if they said
You
something
defended
and
yourself.
they deserved you know, like he was like, all right, you get to sit on the throne today because you slapped somebody in the face or whatever, you know.
Give her that extra piece of chicken today.
Exactly. So it was kind of confusing because it was just like, okay, I get it, like stick up for yourself, but when it came for like between me and her, we were fighting all the way up until I gave birth to my first son. I remember like me being pregnant and being like, and like we were arguing and I was like, this is it, like I'm not gonna freaking fight with you, like physically, like we're not gonna pull each other's hair, we're not gonna freaking throw down, like I'm about to be a mom, we can't be fighting.
This is
like
the last fight.
Yeah, because at the time we knew a family that like the girls they were all like in their late 30s, early 40s, and they still were throwing, like they were still fighting, and like they were jumping each other. There was like 5 girls and they were all sisters, and they would jump the youngest sister just to like, because she was being disrespectful. And I'm like, we can't do that. Like, I'm not going to have my kid around this constant fighting. So
do you think all like families fight like that?
I don't know.
No.
Growing up, my mom, there's 6 of them. There's one boy and 5 girls. None of them ever fought like the way that none of them even argued the way that we argue. Like I'm sure they didn't agree with a lot of the things that they had going on, but no one would argue. Like they just kind of would just, I guess, not talk to them for just a little bit, not even a long time. I don't know. They didn't physically fight either. So I don't know. I really think it's like more of my dad's side that is more like
so
physical.
Like he would do that with his siblings?
Well, he was the youngest boy, and then he had all sisters. So I don't know. I mean, he wasn't really close to them either, like when I was growing up. So I didn't really see, I know that they were dysfunctional. They had a lot of arguments and stuff, but they would cut each other off. They would like not talk for like 5 years and then all of a sudden talk again. So, which was weird to me because my mom's family, I don't even remember my mom's sisters even arguing. So I don't even know if they ever cut each other off or anything like that. It was really weird. I feel like they didn't really get into each other's business.
Yeah.
So, but now as adults though, like I feel like we still fight, like, and it's worse. I feel like it's worse because we are older and we have our own families, and now we're like, it's an option to continue this relationship. So now you just get cut off, and it makes me sad because it's like we're siblings and we've been through so much together, and we went through so much growing up, you know, and then to finally get to a place that we're all adults and we're still fighting over dumbass shit when we can't like respect each other is like so frustrating and like heartbreaking, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Like it seems like, you know, and I'm saying this, I probably shouldn't even reference this, but Marianne probably seen this episode on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. They actually had a fight, and they're older. One. Yeah, so that's why I feel like it gets to a point where like no matter what, you're set in your ways, and siblings just like, I don't know, you just have disagreements. I don't think it'll ever stop. I feel like it would be old. And my grandma and her sister, they have fallen out, I guess. Yeah.
But when it gets tricky is when other people are involved. You know what I mean? Because it's like you can have disagreements constantly, but when you have your, you know, brother disrespecting your husband or your sister disrespecting your wife, that's when you have to draw a line in the sand, and that's hard, you know, because it's like, okay, now I can't forgive you, you know, because you disrespected my husband or whatever, you know. So that's when shit goes, that's when people start cutting people off, you know.
That's when it goes down in the elevator.
Yes. And that's sad. It's so sad. Okay, so so you don't argue. So the next question is if you guys argue with your siblings in front of your kids. So Marianne, you're saying you don't argue with your brother at all anymore?
No.
Like at what age did it stop?
I want to say when I moved out of my mom's house, like he was already living on his own. But it's funny because when I moved out of my mom's house, I moved like 5 houses down from him in like the next town over, like 45 minutes away from my mom's house. So we were next to each other. So I think because we were so close to each other then, like I had to depend on him more. Like my mom wanted him to watch over me kind of thing since she wasn't close anymore. So probably like in college, like we started I don't know. It's probably me. Like that's what I'm saying. Like if you ask my brother, he probably has no clue and doesn't think like, oh, we used to bicker all the time. But like I always thought we were always bickering growing up in high school. Like, but then too, I'm like the black sheep of our family. Like I'm the brat. I'm the middle child. I'm like bend the rules all the way. Yeah, but in college is when we like completely stopped because then we were in college at the same time at the same university. So then his friends started liking me, and then like we would party together. Yeah, and then I thought I was cool partying with my brother's friends, and I don't know. I just like started to maybe because I grew up and I started respecting him more, and then like we just never have fought since then. And then now that I have kids, like he's the godparent to my oldest, and like he treats my kids like they're his. So, and then now that my mom passed, it's just us two. Like my dad, my mom, my sister are all gone, so it's just us two. So I don't know, like I feel like it's hard for us to fight now. Like there's no reason to fight. And he's like a very respectable person. Like he's so sweet. He's like, he wouldn't hurt a fly kind of thing. So it's like hard to get mad at him about anything. So yeah, I want to say like college is when we stop.
Lucky? Did you say you're lucky?
Yeah, you're lucky. You know, he's a great guy. He seems so sweet.
Yeah, he does seem super sweet.
You're lucky that you don't fight as adults, you know, because you don't have to expose your children to that chaos.
Yeah.
What about you, Roni? Now that you guys are adults, I know you guys didn't fight as kids.
We don't fight. However, I think and I think maybe that goes back to when we were younger, not fighting. And now that we're older, like if we run into a problem where we know it needs to be addressed, I feel like sometimes we just brush it under the rug, and then you can tell a change in our relationship. Like we can go from like talking or texting every day, and if we come to an issue, like we won't address it, but we'll know that it's something, and it'll just kind of die out, and we won't like text each other for a while. Or I think it's just, I don't know. I think maybe because we didn't argue, we have issues with like expressing ourselves if we think one of the other is like in the wrong. We never like address it. Like I don't think she's ever, and I'm sure there's a ton of things that I could name that I've probably done that I shouldn't have. And she has never like actually like said like, oh, you were dead wrong for that, or like, and it's the weirdest thing because I know I'm sure. And the same like I don't really address it. Like if there's an issue, we just kind of like keep our peace, and then we'll let time go by, and then we'll just brush it under the rug and pick back up like nothing ever happened. Which probably is not.
Aren't you guys awesome?
That's not good. That's not good at all.
Don't you feel like that'll build up though? Like all the little
and
things?
explode?
Yeah.
I think so. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't think that's a good thing at all. Like I think we should address.
Do you think that it keeps you guys from getting super, super close because you guys can't, or you guys don't feel comfortable enough to like confront the issues?
But then too, the crazy thing about it is we never even say if it's an issue. So it could be like something that I think like, oh, I'm sure that was like something was wrong with that situation. Just me thinking it. But I don't necessarily know if she feels that way because she won't address it.
But maybe you guys have two different like like maybe one, like you guys are more passive or whatever, so that's how you guys cope with things is like you don't have to confront it and make an issue with it. You guys can kind of like think about it and let it cool off on its own, you know?
I guess so. And I always too, with any situation with like whether it be a sibling or a partner, whatever the case may be, I always try to choose my battles before I react. So sometimes I just may feel like it's not even worth addressing because like I value our, relationship more than something that I may have thought for that second rubbed me the wrong way. Like I'm like, it's not even worth
Yeah.
it. So that could be another reason why I'm like, I pick my battles. Life is too short and I have a lot of patience.
I
You
feel
do have
like
a lot of
you
patience.
do. Yes, you do. But I feel like naturally I'm supposed to be like you. Like I'm very patient and stuff, but then I have like that like childhood nagging in the back of my head, that parent that's saying like, kick his ass, kick her ass.
Well, and you had to
Don't
kind
let
of
him
fight for your
disrespect
spot.
you.
Like you had to
Yeah.
fight for your spot. So you're naturally, I feel like you're gonna be like, wait a minute, I have to be heard. Like I'm gonna speak my mind because you had to. You have a big family. Like if you're quiet, like you'll get ran all over. So
So it's
Yeah.
like a constant battle. It's like, okay, make peace, keep the peace. And then this one's like, fuck shit up. No, make your stance.
who do
And
you
I'm
think
just
you're
like,
talking?
I'm constantly like, "Rrr." And as soon as I like make a stance and say like, no, I don't agree with it, and then after I'm like, "Rrr, I shouldn't have said that. Now everyone's mad at me. And I'm like, oh my God.
Then you come back like, I don't care. It needed to be said.
I seriously have arguments with myself. I told, I'll ask my husband for advice. I'm like, and he's so passive too. So he's like, it's not like, he's all like, people are not going to change. This is who they
They're
are.
set in their ways.
You want
Yep.
them to be in your life. You need to either accept it and yes, you have an issue, but now you know what to expect from them. And I'm like, no, I need to tell them that this is now I know. I see them for who they are, and I need to tell them that I see you. And
I
he's like,
see you.
yeah. And he's like, no, you don't need to tell them. They don't care if you see them. And I'm just like, I need to tell them. And then he's like, whatever, you're going to do what you want to do anyway. So then I go and I tell them. And then right
It's a big
after
issue.
I come back and I'm like, I told them. And now we're fighting and I feel awful. And he's like, I don't know why you don't listen to me. And I'm like, ah! But we do. So we've argued in front of my kids and I feel so awful because I feel awful because, like you said, we're rolling over a lot of things that we did as children, like, okay, we got to be the loudest. We got to be loud to get our voices heard. And none of us have grown out of it. So that's how we communicate.
Oh, you're still fighting for that
So we're
spot.
so loud. And my husband's like, everyone's talking at the same time. Like nobody wants to let each other talk. Like you guys are yelling for no reason. And I'm like, well, we're just trying to get heard, So we still do the same thing. And then it escalates like, okay, stop yelling at me. I'm trying to talk. And then it's like, oh, you think this is yelling? And then it's like even
Oh my
more. And then
gosh.
my kids are there and it just gets so blown out of proportion. And I feel so bad. Because then it's like, oh my God, now my kids think that this is normal. This is how you should treat your siblings,
But do you see that already like rubbing off on them? Like, do you feel like your kids are trying to talk over each other, or do you see bits and pieces of it like within their relationship with one another?
So I don't, you know what, when they do when they do talk over each other, we're very quick to be like to interrupt them and tell them, you're interrupting so and so, they're trying to talk. So we try to I feel like it's easier to be on it than to correct ourselves. Like me, I interrupt all the fucking time, and my husband will literally stop mid story and be like, go ahead, you finish telling the story. And I'm like, I just want you to hurry up.
It's your story.
Just get to the point. So I
gotta
have
guess the
that
story.
horrible thing, but I don't know. I feel like when my kids interrupt each other, we always will tell them like, no, you're interrupting, let them talk. So we try to correct it. But I don't know if that's just a kid thing, like that they get so excited that they want to talk over each other, or if that's because of the relationship. And the only ones that they've seen me really argue with is more of my sister. Like me and my sister have gotten into yelling matches, and they'll kind of get startled or whatever, and then I feel bad because I'm like, I don't want them to not like her, my argument with her has nothing to do with them, but then they're kids, they can't help but to form their own opinions and think like, okay, mom's yelling at her, so I'm mad.
Yeah.
So So what about you guys? Like, what do you do when your kids argue?
Well, so Devin and Peyton, 'cause Devin's the oldest, Peyton's the middle. Um, it depends on what they're arguing about, but for the most part, the age difference, I'm like, Devin, first of all, he's all of 7 years old. Like, you used to do the same shit when you were 7. Give him a break.
Yes.
Like, because sometimes it's like, I feel like because Peyton may not necessarily act like a 7-year-old. Sometimes I forget in my mind that he's 7, and I think that Devin also does the same thing. So I have to kind of remind him, like, like he's not thinking like you. Give him a break, because I feel like sometimes um, Devin can be a little hard on Peyton, and then I don't worry about Devin and Harley arguing. They don't argue, but Peyton and Harley get into little screaming matches, but for the most part, Peyton is like, he lets her run all over him, which is not good. Like, I tell him about that too. I'm like, just because she's little and she's a little sister, like if he has a toy and she wants it, he'll just let her take it. And I'm like, no, you had that first. Like, tell her no.
That's
But he
good.
just lets her like run all over him. Run all over him.
Oh my God. I hope that's
it,
not like an example of how he's going to be
As
older.
a
Like
wife,
letting
as a
women
husband.
yes, letting women
no.
run all over them.
We think so. Me and my husband already had discussions about, like,
Does
I'm
that
gonna
make
have
you
to be that
worried?
mom. I'm gonna have to be that mom. Like, I'm about to be that mom. I'm screening all the girlfriends. I'm gonna speak for him. I'm gonna cuss him out if he doesn't.
You're gonna be
Because,
the monster-in-law.
yeah, because they're gonna it's almost to the point where it's like, you want your child to be sweet, but you don't want your child to get ran over. And he's
Right.
like, to the point where he's like, he's too sweet. I'm like, you can be very kind, and I love that about you, but you also have to stick up for yourself, and you can't let people run over you, because even if it's your 3-year-old sister, because
Right.
he's just very, like, he's just super sensitive. And
Well, with that, do you guys know any kids or does he know any kids that get what they want all the time and is like spoiled rotten? Because you could always like use that as an example. So for example, like when the baby was younger, the boys were just like that. They would always try just give her what she wanted. And I'm like, okay, look, think of the most spoiled child that you know that literally throws tantrums at your age. Now, do you think that they got everything they wanted? And it's like, yes. Okay. Do you want her to act like this? Because there's going to be a day where you tell her no and she's going to throw a tantrum and
Yeah.
you're not going to like her the way that she's acting. Do you want her to be like this? And he's like, no. So don't give her everything she wants, you know?
yeah. No,
Like you
like,
got to start young.
I tell
Like,
him, and I think
boundaries.
he learned, like, he got a little better with her. He's still kind of, I know that they're really good about, well, it's probably Peyton because he's a little older, because Harley probably doesn't know anything about that, but he'll like talk it out in a sense. Like, if she's being unrational, he'll be like, Harley, come on, let's do something else. He almost like redirects her to like get her attention,
Good. Yeah.
to get her attention somewhere else. But he's starting to be more firm when she bit him on the back and left the mark.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
yeah, and then he was like, Harley, stop it.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
she left her whole mouth mark
Was
on his
this
back.
recently?
Yeah, probably like a month or 2
Oh
ago.
my God. And he's the sweetest.
I
Poor
know.
kid.
Runs over him. Poor child. What about you? Does Landon and Levi
Oh
argue
my
more?
God. Now they're
Really?
starting to. Now they are.
Oh,
Just
I
like
want
within
to
the.
see
But it's
Levi argue with
also like
Landon. That has
maybe
to
because
be
we're
so
home
cute.
now, stuck within this whole quarantine thing. I think it's starting, like, and Levi's starting to throw tantrums of his own. So, like, I don't know. Landon's the type that just cares about himself and won't, like, he loves his little brother, but when
He's in his
he,
own world.
yeah, he does his own thing. So, like, if Landon's playing in his room and he has his mindset, like, I'm going to play with my Legos and I want to build this whole city kind of thing. And as soon as he sees Levi walking in, like, he already knows Levi's going to, like, destroy
Fuck
everything.
shit up.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
as soon as he sees him, he's like,
He's like, I'm about to push him.
"No!" Yeah, and he'll like go push him or go block him or like, I don't know. So like he'll start using his body to like I don't know, like to
Block them off.
block him, but he's also like pushing back to like knock him over. And then like a Levi will fall and get mad and scream. And the same thing, it's gotten to the point where Landon snatched something out of his hand, or they were fighting over something, and Levi bit Landon's stomach and left a huge mark. But
Oh my gosh.
Landon hasn't learned his lesson. Like, he still just snatches things out of his hands. And I'm like, you can't do that, because then you're going to teach him that. And then when he snatches things out of your hand, and we feel like Levi's going to be like our bigger brute kid, and Landon's going to be our slinky, like, sensitive kid. So I'm like, he's going to get to an age where he's bigger than you. So when he starts doing things to you, don't be mad, because you're the one teaching him that. But I don't know, like, it's not processing in Landon's mind. So he's still in his own world, like, this is my world. But then when he wants him to play with him, like, he's so nice, and he's like, Levi, come play with me.
Of course, it's on his terms. He knows what he's doing.
So I don't know, like, they have their moments, but then they're always, if one's not crying, the other one is, and they just don't. Levi's just throwing tantrums, and Landon's throwing tantrums because he's scared Levi's gonna break one of his buildings, or I don't know.
They're 4 years apart?
They're 4. So Landon is 5 and Levi is 1.5 almost.
You're living my life. You're living my life 4 years ago.
Remember those days?
Yes. Everything you're saying, I'm like, dude, yep. I remember Max would come in and just smash all the Legos. Jack would get so mad and start crying. And I'm like, and I felt bad because, like, I would want them to share. But then then my toddler would come in and break it. And then my older one was like, no, he's going to break. And I'm like, I'll fix it. And it just was like a cycle all the time. I just wanted so badly for them to play together that I risked him breaking everything. But now that the tables have turned and the little girl has come in and she wants to play Legos. And now Max, my middle one, is like, no, she's going to break it. I'm like, no, you don't even say anything because you deserve it. You came in, you broke your brothers. It's just the cycle of being in this family. You got to let her come in here and play. And that's it, and I try to, like, explain to them, like, you did this too, and even today we were just talking about it because my middle one, he's 7 and he's in a phase right now where everything is like, woe is me. Like, nothing is good enough, like, we're literally playing a board game and then he's just like, you guys never play with me. And I'm like, what are we doing right now? Like, oh, but you guys never, like, just right now you are, but you usually never, and I'm just like, nope, you're at that age where no matter what, nothing's good enough for you. And that's fine. You'll grow out of it, because my first son was like that too at that age. Like, everything was like, you never spend time with me. And we would be sitting there spending time with them, so. And then my older one's finally, like, he even was like, what are you talking about? They do this and that, and I'm like, thank you for letting me know that he's going to grow out of it, Right. And it's just like every one of them go through their own little phases and their own little funks, and it's so exhausting. But when they would argue, I would never wanted them to fight, like, because we were allowed to fight, and I feel like it just made us so dysfunctional as adults. Then I was like, I'm not gonna let my kids fight. Like, I know families who they talk it out like normal people, and that's what I want for my children. I don't want them to be hateful for to each other and want to kick each other's ass, because that doesn't solve anything. Like, it just makes you want to fist fight them all the time. So I try to, like, keep it as communication. Like, okay, if you're gonna argue, like, just argue and then say you're sorry or come to some type of thing, and it's harder when they're little, because obviously you can't do that, and you just got to make sure they're not killing each other. But once the little one kind of gets a little bit older, where you guys can, like, explain things, then no, like, we allow them to play fight. Like, they're always play fighting, and somebody ends up crying, and I'm like, hey,
you wanted to play. Don't play fight.
Yeah, exactly. So suck it up. And then there's the quiet fights, like, where you could hear from the room. Like,
that happened the other day. You posted something about that the other day.
Yes, you hear that they're being unfair. And then I'm like, okay, I hear you. Even though I don't know what's going on, but I heard that. And then it's like, all of a sudden, you know, they ship up real quick and they're like, okay, just have it. Fine, then you just do it, you know? And I'm like, you're such a little shit. I don't know which one of you, but you just knock it off. But when they're loud, okay, so there's this book called that I shared with Miriam. It's called Siblings Without Rivalries. And I swear after I read it, I learned so much about like why kids freaking fight. Yeah. And it's crazy because, well, not only like it was saying how you're bringing a new person into their world, into their comfort, and all of a sudden you're like, here, you have to love them, you have to like them, and you have to share with them and give them half of your shit, you know? And so it's really hard for them to like understand and process it, especially depending on what age they are, you know? Maybe when they're younger it's a little bit easier, but like Landon's age, he's already 4, so he's like, what do you mean? Like it was just me and you for so long. You don't love me anymore, you know? Like the older that they get, they start processing it a little bit differently, you know?
Well, what's funny is that like the example they used in that book, like, I mean, when you say it, like I totally like hear what you're saying, but then it still doesn't connect with me. Like I'm like, oh, whatever, he'll figure it out. But in the book, they use the example like pretend it's like you and your spouse or you and your husband or whatever, and all of a sudden randomly he brings in another chick and he's like, okay, I'm gonna love both of you guys just as much as I love like the other one, and this other chick's gonna get half of the things you get, and like, so it's basically what we're doing to the
like,
kids.
wait a minute.
And it's like, how would you feel? Like, how would you feel if your husband did that to you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Now I feel so bad for my oldest.
It's crazy because you never think of it like that. You just think like, oh, you're supposed to love them. They're your blood, you know, you love them as much as I love them. But you're so right. Like, there's no way in how we're understanding and bringing in another person
at all. Even with the age difference from Devin and Peyton, like I caught Devin so many times when he was little. Like Peyton was, I don't even think Peyton was 1 yet. I caught Devin trying to suffocate him. I caught Devin stalking him in the chest when he was in his swing. I caught when I was at the hospital and gave birth to Peyton, Devin broke down crying and was like so unhappy. And he was like, they're just tears of joy. I'm like, those are not tears of joy. You're so bullshitting me right now. They were tears because he was upset.
That.
Oh, yeah. He was not having it. Not at all.
See, and with my oldest, he had an accident at the hospital. I remember, like, he pissed himself.
He was pissed off. He was pissed off.
He had been potty trained for 2 years already. And then all of a sudden they were like, he just peed himself in the hallway. And I'm like, what? We don't even have to change of clothes. Like, what is going on? And they're like, oh, it could be the changes and you're in the hospital and whatever. He's maybe worried about you. And then when we came home, he was so, he was like, I'm a baby animal. Like, I'm a baby gorilla. And all of a sudden he was the baby of the family.
Oh,
yeah. So
they go like, through changes.
No, like, I'm a baby. And I'm like,
they go through changes. They go through changes.
Landon's doing that right now. He starts crying like the baby, and he's like, will cry and be like, mama, mama. And that's what Levi does. And I'm like, and it's like so frustrating because I'm like, dude, don't do that. Like, quit acting like a baby or else I am going to treat you like a baby. Like, so then we start fighting because he like, and I know in my head, I'm like thinking, okay, that's his way of asking for attention. But it's like, oh my God, like, stop. You need to act like a 5-year-old. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like a lot of people would tell me when I was pregnant with Levi, like, oh, you need to start telling Landon, like, this is going to be your baby and that you guys are going to be BFF. So like start like introducing it to him that way when he comes out, he'll be so excited and not so jealous. And we did that. And like, I feel like if he was fine, like he didn't have like any tantrums or anything as a baby or as like when the baby came home. But it's now is when he's starting to act up because of the baby. And it's like, what? We went a whole year with you, like loving him. And he would have like, there was one time Levi was probably 3 months and Landon was pretending like he was jumping over him because the baby was, those little like tummy time activity centers.
Play mat.
Levi was under it, and Landon would act like he was jumping over it, but he legit jumped on his belly. And he was only 3 months, so me and my husband freaked out. And we're like, and it's funny because my husband was right there, and he was like, don't jump on him. And right as he said that, he's like, it's almost like he heard jump on him, like he did it purposely. Yeah, so I don't know, that was like the only incident that happened when Levi was like little, but
I know naturally they're just I think there's just naturally they just go through this thing where they're like almost like jealous and they don't know how to process it, because I have a friend who has a child that is 1 and her older son is 14, and she was even telling me that her 14-year-old is showing signs of being jealous of the baby. So and he's 14, so I think it just, I don't know, it just depends.
That's crazy.
That is, because that's a big age difference. It's like, okay.
You know, I went through it where I wished I was the only child, or like I wish that my parents stopped having kids after me. Like I would, like, why didn't you just stop? Like you had 2 boys and me, and you
wasn't that enough, lady?
I know,
what's
greedy
wrong?
asses. Why you guys being so greedy? But no, I can't. Like, I don't think I was ever like I did any of that to my siblings. But who knows? I don't know. Who knows what my parents.
I'm gonna ask your mom.
But when the kids, by going back to the kids, like that book says like not to take sides, because that can make them fight more, you know, and that's so hard too, because obviously you're gonna see like who you agree with or more. But like one thing that I've used from that book that has helped is, instead of finding out what the other person did, like I make the kid admit, like, what did you do? And they want to tell you what the other person, but Jack did this. And I'm like, no, but tell me what you did. What did you do that caused this? Or, you know, and if he says he did this first, then I'll ask my older son, like, what did you do? And it's like the hardest thing for them to freaking just tell me what they did and fess up to it. But I think it's like the most powerful thing, because then like they're finally being honest and they're admitting to their shit that they did, you know, which is crazy, because it's like, we never did that crap. Nobody asked us what we did. We just got in trouble for it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the don't taking the sides is like super important, because I guess that's what builds the most
absolutely, it makes
animosity between them, is like, mom always takes your side, and then there's favoritism or whatever.
Exactly.
But and then I always try to ask them too, like, okay, so like after they tell me what you did, then, or what they did, I'll ask them, okay, well, how would you like it? How do you think that made him feel? You know, and then I'll ask the kid, like, how did that make you feel? And then they're like, it made me feel sad. And I'm like, look, he's telling you he feels sad about it, you know? And then I'm trying to like get them to learn how to express their feelings, because me growing up in a big family, communication, we didn't tell each other really how we felt. It was like, fuck you, get out of here, you know? Like, so to say like, you hurt my feelings, or I felt sad or whatever, like that's bizarre. But I want them to feel like, be able to communicate their feelings or express their feelings, you know? So I'm trying to teach them in a young age to like be in tune with their feelings and their anger and their rage, you know, like tell them that you're pissed, tell them that you're mad because he did this, you know, and then how would you like it if you did that, or vice versa, you know? And then they're like, okay, obviously I wouldn't like it. And then I tell them like, okay, and I think you guys can work it out. Like, I trust that you guys can work it out now. And then I'll leave, and then they'll talk it out. And sometimes I hear an apology and sometimes not. But okay, guys. But there's times when they're really, really loud, and I'll ask them, do you need me to get involved? And then they're like, no, we got it.
You're like, good.
Thank God. And honestly, this is not every time, but after I read this book, I tried to like implement these things. And I feel like ever since then, I've been hearing less and less of like, you always take his side, or, you know, you like, I feel like they're working things out better on their own now. And almost every time that I say, do I have to get involved? They're like, no, we got it. You know? So I'm like, that's good. Because before I would always freaking get involved, and it's exhausting, and you don't have the energy for that, you know?
But too, do you think it's because they're older now?
Yeah, and this is okay. Let me just tell you, they're 11 and they're 7. So obviously with my 2-year-old, it's completely different. Like
Yeah.
between the 7 and the 2-year-old, this communication and all this stuff is not really going to happen. So for that age gap, if they're fighting, I make the bigger one understand what the little one's doing, and then she's smaller. I mean, obviously, don't let her run all over you, but
Mhm.
you have to be patient with her because she's little and
Yeah.
she's learning. So it's different. It's totally different. Like I'm always telling them to just be patient with her and basically forgive her for all of her mistakes because she's little and she's learning.
Yeah.
And I try to tell them over and over, you did this too. You were a turd. You did all this stuff to your brother, and this is like in a way a payback, but
Yep.
also she's learning. And then I try to tell them, she's going to treat you the way that you treat her. So if you're mean to her right now, she's going to be mean to you. So when the older boys were younger, my little one, obviously, or middle one, wanted to play with the older one all the time. And the older one was like, I want to do my own thing. And so now that the little one's getting older and more athletic and stuff, the older one's like, okay, we can play together. So they want to play, but now my middle one is like, nah, sometimes I want to do my own thing. And then the older one gets mad, like, you don't want to play what I want to play. And I'm like, see, I told you one day it's gonna come around. It always comes around.
Yeah.
But they gotta learn on their own, So then what do you guys do when they fight? Like, what is your way to keep the peace?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, when they fight, I kind of do the same thing. Like, I'm like, I do not have time to be like arguing with both of you guys because that's what it's going to turn into. So I make them issue out their problems themselves. Like, sit down, talk about it, tell him why you're mad. And especially, it depends on who the fight is with. 9 times out of 10 is just the 2 older boys. But I tell them to like think about the situation and handle it yourself. I want them to talk it out themselves. I don't always want to interject unless I have to, but I make them talk it out themselves. And 9 times out of 10, they figure it out. And I think that comes from too, like when I was teaching, we would always have to make the kids problem solve and get it together. So it always would work. It would always work versus this tattletelling and this. And usually it's something so like that they can handle anyway that's taking me from warming up something. Like, you guys could get this yourself. Leave me alone.
Really quick, you said tattletaling. There was one summer, I don't know if my son was 4 or 5, the middle one, but he was
Fall,
on
summer.
a tattletale kick. And one of my friends who's a teacher told me, you should tell them, listen, here's the box. Every time you want to tattle, write it down or draw a picture of what your sibling did to you, fold it in the box, and I will review it at the end of the week. Like or at the end of the day, like every day I'll look at your pictures. Oh my God, that works so good. Like this kid was nonstop tattling, and I'm like, go draw it, go draw a picture, go write me a letter, whatever. He didn't know how to write at the time. So he would literally draw a picture. Oh, Jack said no, or whatever, and then he'd fold it up all aggressively and put it in the box. And then but it felt like it seemed to work because he would like get over it and then go play with him. And so I'm like, hey, I think he just wants to be heard or something, or he wants to like get it all out, Yeah. And then one time he's like, you don't even look at the box. And I was like,
You're like,
I did, and I'm going to get on it.
It's processing. It takes 3 to 5 business days before I can get back to you about this.
So Marianne, what do you do when the boys fight at this age? I know it's hard. And I feel like a lot of our listeners have babies that are like the age difference of your boys. So real quick for the new listeners, how old are your boys and what do you do when they fight?
Landon is 5 and Levi turned 1 in January. So a little over 1, like 15, 16 months now. I am telling you, I'm having alcohol every night. When they fight, like there's not really much I can do other than explain to Landon that his brother's little, he doesn't understand. You are the one to be his example. So you need to teach him like what's right and wrong. So 2, he's 5, he's starting to tattletale. And then on top of like him already arguing about like the toys or whatever. So he'll say, Levi's being a bad boy. He just threw all his food on the floor. But it's, you know, like he's a baby. When he's done, he's just gonna toss everything. And I'm like, you used to do that when you're little. He can't talk yet. Well, like now Levi's doing sign language. So he kind of can communicate. And it's hard to explain it to Landon because I'm like, he can't tell us. He can't tell us like how he feels. He can't tell us what he wants. And he's like, yeah, but he does this when he wants something, so you do know. And it's funny because now Landon's starting to do this. I'm like, don't do that. Like, use your words. Like, so he's telling on him, and I'm like, you can't. Like, he's little. He's still learning. Why don't you go tell him, Levi, don't throw your food on the floor. That's not good manners. Like, you can go tell them that. You don't need to tell me. Or if they're fighting over the toys, like, I have to explain to Landon, like, you can't just snatch a toy out of his hand because then now you're teaching him not to share, or I have to teach Landon about sharing. And it's like a never-ending cycle over here. So I'm going like this in my head.
So you're having a never-ending cycle too?
Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard because like my youngest can't talk, and now he's starting to pick up the habits of the older one where like he's throwing tantrums because he's not getting his way, and he's throwing himself on the floor screaming because he saw my older one throw tantrums. So it's like, I don't know, like the only thing I know to do is explain the patience to my older one and have my older one help my younger one understand, because later on he's going to look up to him and start copying him. So it's almost like, because my oldest one wants me to go punish the little one, and I can't.
I feel like he's a baby. Yeah.
And I can't. So, but he wants to see me do something. So it's almost like when he tells me something, I have to go tell Levi, like, Levi, that's bad manners. You can't throw your food on.
And Levi's like,
and he's just like, whatever. But for Landon, like,
Levi's like, here's my food.
And it's so funny because after that, Landon's fine and will move on with his day. But
it's like, probably just satisfying that he's like, okay, as long as she's telling that little baby stuff too, like she tells me, we're good.
And being heard.
It got to the point where he's like, Levi, you're a bad boy. And I'm like, no, you're not his parent. You do not ever tell him that. Like, you can't tell him he's bad because he did something that's a bad choice. He needs to learn what the good choice is. So why don't you take your ass and teach him? So I don't know, like there's not really much I can do because one can talk and one can't. So it's more about helping my older one be patient and understand.
And Marianne, do you think with this quarantine that we're going through, do you think it's gotten worse now that since they can't like release the energy at a theme park or something because we can't go anywhere? Do you see it like it's more?
It's more too because they're forced to have to play with each other, or like, you know, my oldest one's used to playing with his classmates at school. So now like
that's his age.
He wants us to play with him and I'm like too busy cleaning or doing something. And or if my husband's home, he'll ask him to play with him. And we'll take turns, like you go do him and I'll take care of Levi, or vice versa. But then like there's times where we're like, just go play with your brother or go play on your own. But then, like, Levi loves Landon, so he goes and follows him. And it's like a fight from morning to night, like, during this whole quarantine.
I remember Max, the younger one, he wanted to follow him all the way, all around, too. And my older one really wanted nothing to do with him for the first 3 years of life. Like, he was just like, he's just this, he would come and pat him on the head and then like go away and play with his toys, and he wanted nothing to do with them. Like the little one would go around and try to get his toy, and he would just get all possessive over his toys. And he would do the same thing, the whole he's being a bad boy or whatever. Or he even sometimes now they'll try to scold each other, and I'm like, that is not your job to punish each other or talk to each other. You know, like sometimes I hear them scolding each other the way that I scold them. Like,
Yeah.
how many times do I have to tell you? And I'm like,
That's the funny part when you hear that.
like, you are not their parents. You are not
But
allowed to talk to each other like
it's
that.
hilarious when they do that though, because then you hear a little bit of yourself and
Yeah.
you're like, damn.
It's out. Yeah, I know. So when they fight, I feel like I always have to tell them or remind them that, listen, we are all on the same page. We're on the same team, like we have to not fight. We have to communicate. Yes, we're going to make each other mad, but we're a family. This is like, we're a unit. We're on the same team. We need to respect each other, respect each other's space, and learn to communicate. Like, if he makes you mad, tell him before you blow, like that's one thing is like, I hear that when I hear them saying like, no, I said no, then it's like, no. And I'm like, dude, he told you no a bunch of times.
Yeah,
You
why let it get to that
respect
point?
you need to respect his boundaries. So then, I didn't hear him. It's like, you're such a liar.
Hear
But sometimes
gas from the
I'm like,
kitchen.
you guys have to. Then I threaten him like, you guys are gonna spend all day in one room by yourself. No TV, no nothing. And then you're really gonna be sad, So because they think like punishment, they're like, yeah, I get to go in my room by myself. Like, no. You're in the room
Together.
together with nothing else but your toys to play with. So you better simmer it down.
Is that how you would say you keep the peace? By doing that? Have you done that before or no?
Put them
That's
in the room?
Mhm.
Yes,
That's
I
a good
have.
idea.
I have, and they will. They'll like, they eventually get along. It's weird, and I feel like they have like these power struggles because my younger one doesn't act like the younger, like, or my middle one, he doesn't act like a younger sibling. He's always been real like a leader, ever since he was little. He did things so fast, So I have like two little leaders in my house that I'm like, you guys have to compromise, like take turns. We are rock, paper, scissors house. Like, everything is a rock, paper, scissors, because both of them are constantly fighting, and I'm like, rock, paper, scissors out. You guys got like, that's our thing of dealing with everything is rock, paper, scissors. Because they can't agree on anything. Nothing is ever fair. But and another thing is like, I try to teach them. A book tells you like, as a parent, there's so many things that we fuck up and we don't apologize for. So we have to like model what an apology is. So there's been times where like, after I read a lot of those self-help books or improvements, and I'm like, damn, I'm really screwed up, or I shouldn't have done this or whatever. So then I'll go to them and I'll tell them like, hey, remember when I did this or I said this? Like, I shouldn't have said that.
Sorry.
I apologize. Like, I'm learning to be a better person. Your whole life, you could always improve. Like, I'm always trying to teach them like, it's never too late to change, and be a better person. You gotta always like grow, so.
They look at you crazy.
So yeah,
like,
having them
that happened 2 years
apologize
ago.
has been really like effective too, to get them to like be humble and come to terms with like that they're not perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you prevent your kids from being jealous of one another?
So one way that I keep the peace with my kids from just acting crazy is I schedule in like sibling time. So whether it be Devin and Peyton, like I have in our schedule set time for them to like watch a show together. They could play a game together. They could, if they want to go somewhere before all this stuff happened, they'll go somewhere. And each of them do it with each other. So Peyton will have time with Harley. Harley will have time with Devin. Like, we'll split it all up amongst all of them. Just because like I started to see like as Devin got older, I would notice like more and more him and his siblings didn't really have much in common, because like, he's getting older. So it kind of scared me, because I'm like, even though he's getting older, I still want him to have a bond with them. And I'm like, whether it be forced or not, I still want to get that. So I started scheduling in that, and then I noticed like a balance. Like, it wasn't so standoffish. He wasn't so short with his brother. Like, he actually looks forward to that time. So that
Yeah,
helped a lot. That has really helped a lot.
That's cool.
I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you prevent your kids from being jealous of one another?
Marianne, you can go because
I
I don't know if I know
can't
the answer.
really.
I know.
Because like for me growing up, like that's why I feel like I I don't know. I not that I was jealous of my brother, but I could tell I knew like I would verbally tell other people that I would be jealous that him and my mom were more of a team against me kind of thing. So with my kids, that's what my biggest fear is. So like when I start seeing or hearing Landon say things like, how come Levi gets to do this or whatever, like just little signs of jealousy, I just nip it in the bud and I'm like, he's little, you got to do that too. He doesn't understand yet, or you need to share. Like, this is his toy. He got it for his birthday, but he'll share with you because, you know, like their birthdays are like a month apart. So Levi got all these toys for his birthday, and all of a sudden Landon wants the same toys, or he tries to go get them. And I'm like, no, they're his, but he'll share with you. Because he tries to say, no, they're mine because I'm bigger or I'm older.
Mm-hmm.
So I can have the toys and I'll share with him. And I'm like, no, they're his. And
Mm-hmm.
you have your own that you got from your birthday, and you guys can share together. Like, I like just little things he's starting to like show jealousy over, and it's like, nope, like just I just nip it and I just try to explain to him. But I mean, I can't explain anything to Levi, so
Yeah. It's hard because I feel like I'm the same with you. I'm kind of impatient when it comes to favoritism, or like that whole like I've had my kids tell me like, you hate me, and I'm like, oh, stop. You're not gonna get what you want just because you feel like throwing out the
Right.
you hate me. You know that I love you and you're still not getting it, like. And they've tried to say like, you like this person more than the other, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with who I like more. You did this and these are the consequences, and that's
yeah,
it. So I love you, but bye, you're in trouble, like I just always try to remind them that I love them, but they're still in trouble, or they're still not going to get it. So like, not every night, but when I tuck them in, I'll tell my sons at different times like what I'm proud of them doing that day. Like, oh, you were so good at sharing today, or oh, you did so good on your test, or like, how it says to like praise them privately, or like if we're one-on-one, then I try to praise them. I still try to praise them, but like I try not to do it so much in front of the other person, because I just don't want the other person to get so jealous. And I don't know if that's silly, because to me it was like, before, what I used to do was just praise both of them, and then I kind of thought, well, I wonder if this holds any value to them, or because I would say like, oh, Jack, you did so good today at today's game. Oh, but Max, you did so good yesterday at your game. And I feel like that would kind of bring down the
Yeah.
acknowledgement or
Yeah.
recognition from the older one that
Yeah.
really had his moment. So sometimes I'm like, hey, he did really good, didn't he, Max? And aren't we proud of our brother? So I'll try to also like bring him in on it, like we are proud of him. But then I'll do the same thing for the other kids' game. So I don't know, but the whole, like, one of the important things was like, don't compare them. And I think that's the hardest thing, because they're so different, and you're gonna see like they have
Yeah.
completely different personalities. One is so much, there's so different, and sometimes you're drawn more to one of their personalities because they're easier or whatever, and it's so hard to not compare.
yeah,
But I guess that's like the worst thing to do, is to be like, how come you can't be like a brother? Because that builds like animosity towards the sibling. Like, even though it's not
Yeah.
even
That
that
makes
sibling's
sense.
fault, it's like
It makes
the
total
sibling
sense.
didn't say it, it's the parent that said it, but they just are like, I hate that sibling because
yeah,
they're always getting that praise, or mom thinks they're perfect or whatever, so they always like, they start building like resentment.
And our
But
even mom's opinion always matters. So coming from you, it's like, it's like, wait a minute, hold up, mom.
And the same thing with like locking him into certain roles. Like when we were little, we all had roles. Like my sister, she was a good arguer. So they were like, you're going to be a lawyer. And me, they were like, oh, you're going to be a doctor. Or like my brother, you're going to be an artist, you know, and like each one of us had like a specific role. But it's like when you lock them into these roles, they think, oh, this is who I am and this is what I have to be, you know? And so it like limits them. And then they resent the other person because they're like, well, I want to be an artist. And how come she gets to be this way or that way, you know? And it's like we do the damage. There a lot of the reasons why they can't stand each other is because of us as parents. We put all of these different standards and like, you know, praises and things in their heads that it's not equal or whatever. And then they start resenting each other because of the way that we treat them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just crazy. You got to read that book. It's so
yeah,
cool.
that book sounds good. That book sounds good. But giving them a role kind of takes the pressure off things and makes them still feel like they're important and they're helping out. So that was really big, especially with Peyton and Harley. He helped a lot more than Devin helped with Peyton. And I don't know if that made a difference in their relationship or it could also be age, but Peyton and Harley are like, they play together every day. They're like inseparable. And he helped a lot when she was a baby. So I don't know if that has something to do with it or it's just their age.
I totally agree about the role thing. Yeah. And to remind them that like to be a role model, you know what I mean? Like that their baby's watching them and they're going to learn everything that they do. So they need to do, you know, show them good things and not bad things, you know? And another thing is to fuel the kid's love tank. So like the older kid figure out what their love language is, because each kid has like a different love language, and there's actually a book on it too. I haven't read it though, but I will link it. But there's a book on like kid love languages, and but it says like a lot of us kind of, if you pay attention to your kid, you'll kind of learn what their love language is, because some of them get more excited when you buy them little gifts, or some of them get more excited when you just sit and color with them, or when you just sit with them and cuddle and watch a movie. Like you don't have to really be doing anything. And so those are all different kinds of love languages. And if you just ask them, like when they're older, it's easier. But if you just ask them, like, what do you want to do, like with us together, you know? And they'll tell you, like, I just want to sit with you, or I just want to color with you, or whatever. Like, or if you could say like, you could do anything you want to do, like, and I'll do it with you, then they say it. And sometimes it's the most simple things and you're like, really, that's what you choose to do? But that fills up their love tank. That makes them feel super loved. And sometimes it's like the most simple thing, and it's something that you would never even think of doing because it's so easy or simple or whatever, you know? And you're like, wow, getting you this little, you know,
Trinket.
I don't know, trinket, or bringing, letting you eat an extra scoop of cereal is really gonna, I don't know what it is, but you know, sometimes it's that simple that makes them feel extra loved. But yeah, just taking that extra time.
Yeah. I remember just with Landon, like I said earlier, like I would, before the baby was born, I would tell him, like, this is your baby, this is your BFF. And then once the baby came, like, we let him be very hands-on with him. Like, we'd let him hold him for a while and just watch TV, or I'd let him help with, like, changing the diapers, or I'd let him read a book to the baby while I was, like, holding him. So just, like, little things like that. But I feel like I said before, like I feel like now his jealousy is barely coming out now that it's like a year later. So
he's like, he's still here.
Yeah.
He's like, you're moving out.
He's getting bigger. He's now because now he's taking his stuff, you know, like before he was a baby and he wasn't as mobile and he wasn't getting into his personal space, you know. Now he's like, you're taking my mama and you're taking my toys
and you just knocked down my Lego building. You gotta go. You gotta get out of here.
Okay, I always feel like my older son, he never really acted like the older child, like the way that he acted with like a younger child, or like the youngest. Like he always wanted to be around older kids. He didn't have that like leadership personality, like, oh, come with me and I'm going to play with you. He had more of like, I just want to play with the older kids. I don't want to deal with the younger kids, you know? And my little one, he likes to play with the younger kids, you know? So do you feel like your kids fall into those specific birth order, like, you know, the birth order ranks? Like, does your older son act like like the oldest and kind of like that nurturing, and like he has that in his personality? Or do you feel like it has it do you feel like it's not the case? Because I feel like it doesn't really apply. And I'm not sure if like, I know that my younger one or my middle one started getting a little bit worried and stuff when the baby was born. And I just thought it was just change. And everyone's like, oh, it's because he's going to be a middle child and he has middle child syndrome. But I don't know if that's the case. Like, I don't know if I want to believe the middle child syndrome.
Are we on that question?
Yes. Do you
Speaking
believe in
of,
it? Do you feel like your kid has the middle child syndrome?
so this is the thing. So like I do not like to get into the labels and like, you know, all of that. However, sometimes you see different traits of what they say your typical middle child is, and I can't help to see some of that in my middle child. So I'm like, well, I don't want to label you as a middle child, but you're acting like a middle child.
Okay. So maybe it's just
So
as we're
it's
in
kind of
denial or something.
hard. It's kind of hard, but
Do you feel like your older one falls into like the first child, like that leadership role? Or
I don't know. It's weird because sometimes I feel like he does. I feel like he did when he was a little bit younger, but as he gets older, I don't really see it. And like I say, I always like beat up myself because of the age difference. And like, I mean, I can't help the situations about what happened with the me losing babies and stuff, because that would have brought the age really close. But sometimes I just feel like, oh my God, the age difference is it's so large that sometimes it's like inevitable that it's going to happen. You know, like I'm like, I can't make this almost freshman kid, you know, responsible or just be up under a 7-year-old. Like, you know, I feel like it's almost not fair, but at the same time, it's his brother and he has to, you know, like I don't want you to think that it's not okay. So I don't know. It's weird.
yeah, like it's a choice. Like it's not a
Yeah.
choice. This is your family. I know.
Yeah.
I'm always reminding them, you wanted him. You
Like
prayed
this
to
is
God for
blood.
him.
Like you guys have to be there for each other regardless of, you know, of anything. Like it's family. Like you have to. But I don't know. That stuff gets complicated.
I feel like now that my son's getting a little bit older, and maybe now because the baby girl's here, he's being more protective and like, okay, now he's like telling them what to do now and kind of like, hey, follow the leader kind of thing. But I feel like that's brand new. Like he's 11, and I feel like maybe it started at 10.
Hmm.
But before that, he was like, you guys are on your own. Like he never really had like a nurturing bone in his body. And that's weird for me because my older brother, he took care of us. He would make us sandwiches. He would always have ideas for us to go play in the backyard, build forts, like, and that's why I wanted a boy first, because I was like, my brother was like everything to us, and he like had all the cool ideas, and he would teach us how to dance, and he taught us how to do just all kinds of shit, you know? And it's like, and I thought that that's how it was going to be, but my older son doesn't have that. He doesn't have that like, hey, let's go in the backyard and play or like make up stuff. And so then I kind of think, well, maybe it's just their personality. Maybe it's because my brother had a different personality, like
But
more outgoing.
do you see a difference in the way your oldest son is with your middle son versus your older son with the baby? Like, does he take more of
Yeah.
initiative? Because I see a difference there
He's so much
with
more
my
patient
family.
with her. And then I think maybe I should have waited 10 years. maybe,
So,
maybe 4 years was a little too close. Like maybe I should have,
well, do you think
his
it's
age
the
difference.
gender too? Because she's a girl, so he's more.
Maybe.
Because I see Devin takes more of like a leadership role, and he's more patient with Harley than he is with Peyton. Like, he'll snap on Peyton in a second, but Harley, he's a little more patient with her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Maybe it is a gender thing.
Do
I don't
you,
know.
or because you guys have three, do you feel like because your oldest one is almost like nice, like your oldest and your youngest are nice to each other, do you feel like your middle one gets left out and it's like, how come they play nice together and we don't? Like, do you feel that with the middle?
My middle one would tell me stuff like that, and I'm like, because I try to explain to him that the older one will sit and play with her. That's why, like, if you took the time to sit there and played. But it was hard because my older one would give in to my daughter, so she just was drawn to him more because she's like, oh, he gives me all the snacks, and my middle one was like, no, only one, like, he's my rule follower, and he's like, no, you're not gonna have more than me, like, we only have one, and so then she would get mad, and so she would get more mad at him, like, and my little one, he was only trying to, like, a lot of the stuff he was trying to protect her, like, you're gonna fall, don't sit on there, and she would get all mad that he was trying to tell her what to do or whatever, so I feel like she has like this anger towards him when he tries to like protect her, and so then he would get his feelings hurt, and he's like, she doesn't like me, she only likes the older one. And so, but I would tell him, like, just find something that you guys can do together. So lately they started playing Legos, and they love it and they get along. And so he's like, she doesn't break it. So I'm like, okay, that's good, because she used to break it. So now they're getting along more, but they're not as close as, like, Roni says that your two younger ones are. Like, they're not as close.
and
I
what
think
are
it's
they the
because,
same? No, they're different. A 1 year more,
yeah, they're
right?
4 years apart. But I think a lot of it has to do with my middle one still wants to hang out with the older one all the time. Like, he's not very content by himself. Like, because I've seen your middle son, like, he could play by himself well, right? Like, he's
Yeah.
just kind of like, he's independent. But my middle one, he's like, he has to be around people, and he doesn't like being all by himself. So, and he
But
doesn't
I think
really.
that comes from Peyton learned that because when Devin wouldn't play with him, he had no choice. He was like, well, this guy doesn't want to play with me, so I'm going to play by myself.
Yeah, that's true. Do you feel like London has like a leadership personality? Like,
Yes, we always tell him he's bossy.
yeah.
But he's always in his own world too, so
Yeah, he's very independent. Like, he
Yeah,
likes to
he
yeah,
play
is.
on his
he can
own.
play by himself. And like the only reason I asked you guys that was because I'm a middle child, and I always grew up thinking like, oh, my oldest brother and my youngest sister always got more attention than me because the oldest is the first to experience everything, and then the youngest is the littlest, so they need to be taken care of. So I always had a little, like, not like anger or whatever towards them, but I always felt like, it's because I'm in the middle. Like, so when we had kids, me and my husband, I always said, like, I don't want three because I hated being the middle child. So that's why I'm like, but now that we
Really?
have kids, I'm like, I don't want four.
Because it's so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I always said, I don't want one because they're going to be spoiled. I don't want two because it's like, there's just two of them. But I don't want three because I don't want a middle child. But now that we have kids, I'm like, oh my God, four sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, I can't imagine having four.
Yeah, I
It's
think
a lot of
whether,
work.
yeah, in middle children it's a such thing, whether we want to
And
believe it or
even
not.
though, like, I had a brother, I always got his hand-me-down. So I hated that. You know what I mean? And it's funny
Yeah.
because Levi gets all of Landon's, like, hand-me-down. So I'm like, oh my God, see, he's going to have that middle child thing if we have another kid. So
And
And they do get hand down.
what exactly do you know what the stigma is with the middle child? Like, what exactly is it? Do they just
That
aim for
they feel
they don't
less
get as much,
loved,
yeah,
or yeah.
they feel less love. They don't get as much attention as the other two. And, like, they just kind of get left behind. Like, they just fell in the cracks kind of thing.
Well, I wonder, like, Peyton is a big, like, Tyler laughs all the time with Peyton. He's like such a mama's boy to like the 18th power. Like, to the point if I'm like, out of the room for like 1 minute, he'll be like, "Where did mom go?" Or come look for me. Like he'll be doing his homework. He'll take a break to come give me a hug. Like he is like so like so I'm like, is that from him being a middle child and he think like he's like fighting for my attention, or is it just that he's a mama's boy? Like I don't ever know how that
Yeah,
that's
that's why I feel like a lot of their personalities,
It has to do with
I wonder
personality.
if a lot of it has to do with their personalities, like, or their age, like the age that they're experiencing right now. Because to me, I feel like, yeah, I could chalk it up like the things that Max is doing as a middle child, but I'm like, Jack did this when he was
Yeah.
the first child at this
Mhm.
age, like
Mhm.
I feel like they go through different things at different maturity levels at different ages, and so I just feel like right now he's going through
Just the
what
stages, yeah.
a season of life of everything is horrible for him or feel sorry for him,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so wait, so what is your opinion for favoritism? Were you guys a favorite child? Well, you were all by yourself, Roni. Don't lie, you were the favorite. You're
Oh,
your
I was
mom's
He
not the
only.
still
favorite.
is.
Wait, you're your
Oh,
mom's
my
only
mom.
child, right?
Yeah, my
So
mom
you're
for
her
sure.
favorite. You're her best
I
friend
guess that's the only way to be because I don't have any competition,
by default. You're the
right?
default favorite.
Seriously, man.
And then Marianne, obviously, you were not.
I was not. But I like me and my mom had the same personality, so we always clashed. Like and as I got into my teenage years, I was like such a bitch to her. So that's why too I'm scared to have a girl.
Oh my God.
But yeah, but like now that I'm older and I like reflect back on it, it's like I used to always believe that my brother was the favorite child because they always sided together or he got whatever he wanted and I
Mhm.
always had to like earn my things. But I mean, it's what my mom, she was by herself trying to raise us. And I think just it's my personality and I just was the black sheep. So
So now looking back at it, and now that you're a parent, do you feel like she really favored him, or do you kind of see?
no, now I see. And it's like I've told her, or I told her before, like I appreciated everything she did, or I understand why things were the way they were, and she was a single mom basically trying to raise all of us, and did what she could do with a full-time job, and you know what I mean. So it's funny because as I was growing up, even all the way till college, like I would verbally tell everyone, and it's funny because then like some of my aunts and uncles would be like, "Oh yeah," like they would agree with me. So I'm like, oh, see, I'm not crazy. Like, but as I'm older now and I have my own kids, it's like, no, like, I mean, she did what she had to do. You know what I mean? Like, I always told everyone I had to earn my car, and he's pissed because I got it my junior year and he had to wait his senior year, but I like got the good grades. I was like good at all sports, and he didn't do shit.
That's kind of how I felt. So my family thought that I was the favorite, and I feel like it was by default. I feel like it was because I was the quiet one. I was the one that tried to like fly under the radar, the one that had no opinion, the one that just wanted to be easy and like just don't look at me kind of thing. Like I just get good grades so my dad doesn't yell at me, and I just don't want to be the negative attention. And so I just would kind of like just try to meet my parents' expectations so that I didn't get yelled at like everybody else. And they never, I feel like they didn't really praise me a lot. It's not like they were like, oh, Janelle. It was I feel like I got ignored, but because I didn't get yelled at or because I didn't get blamed or because I wasn't the first one to get in trouble, my parents would be like, or my siblings would be like, you're the favorite. Like you're the favorite. And I'm like, why? They didn't say I was their favorite. But it was because like, well, you never get in trouble. So you go ask. Like you go ask mom and dad because they never tell you no, or you go do this because. And so like that's why they felt like I was the favorite. But I don't feel like I was the favorite because they loved me more. I just think because I tried to like
Oh, so you agree and you were the favorite.
I think my mom will never admit it. That's the thing. My mom will never admit it. I just think I was the favorite, quote unquote, because I didn't get it yelled at as much as my other siblings.
You stayed
But
out
we
of
all got
trouble.
spankings. We all, you know what I mean? Like we all did shit, but it wasn't as much. So, or I didn't back talk. So I was like the favorite. But I feel like it was a negative thing. I don't remember it feeling like, oh, I'm their favorite, so I get to get away with all kinds of stuff and like feeling like the positives from it. I feel like my siblings hated me because of it. So I was like, I didn't want to be the
goody
favorite. I was like, I'm not trying to be the favorite. I just don't want to get in trouble, you know? So it was kind of hard. Yeah, like the goody two shoe reputation. I actually ended up wanting to like do bad stuff so that I could
So you'd
earn
be
my
like, see,
siblings respect, you know, like,
you're like,
okay,
see, I don't follow the
yeah,
rules all the time.
I'm a
Told
rule
you.
breaker. But yeah, but I really feel like my siblings had like animosity built up against me because they thought I was like the favorite. I feel like it made them mad at me or like mean to me or like, you know, like resent me. But none of my parents admitted that I was the favorite. It was just
I
like,
don't think they would.
it was like an unsaid
They
thing.
would.
Some parents do. Oh my
Do they?
God. I know a mom who has 4 kids, and she would say her third child was her favorite because he was her first boy. And she would put it out there all on social media. Like it's because he's my favorite. And if you have a problem with it, it's because you must not be your parents' favorite. And I'm like, that is so fucked up. Like you don't even know what you're doing to your kids right now.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Like your other kids hate you
yeah.
and not even hate you because they don't hate their parents, but they hate that favorite kid. They're gonna
Yeah.
it's like if you make them a target, like yeah, maybe they're your favorite, but you're making them a target for the other kids to hate, and now they resent them, and they did nothing wrong. You know, like I just feel for them. I feel for them. So do you guys have a favorite?
Well, I do. I'm just playing. I do not. You know what? Like, if I'm gonna be honest, I don't have favorites. There's just kids that work my nerves a little more that day than the other ones. But I don't have favorites. Like, I can genuinely like. I love my kids all equally. If something happened to one of them, I would equally be distraught. Like, you know, there's no favorite. But like I said, there's days when one of them may get on my nerves more than the other one.
Or more often. They're the one that every day gets on your nerves. I have one that every day there's something, and I'm just like, oh my God, you're the one all the time.
You're not my favorite.
But I still love them. I don't know if it's, you know, I've seen favoritism like out there, like that they say you're my favorite. And because I see that and I see how it affects the other person, and I'm like, that is so wrong. I don't know. I'm just so against favoritism that I'm like, I try to make it a point, like, even if I'm freaking mad at that other kid, I'm like, I love you, but you're driving me insane. Like, so I want them to still know that I love them, but they're just, there's some kids that
But
you
it does
just
exist.
kind of naturally click with more than others, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
Why are you laughing, Marianne?
Like, I have a favorite.
You have a favorite?
Right now, the one that doesn't talk back to me is my favorite.
Exactly.
When he starts talking, you ask me again.
And that's another thing. Like at one point, that first one didn't talk back. You know, like they all have seasons where they were all cute and cuddly, and they were not disrespectful. You know, so it's just they're gonna go through all kinds of phases.
They are, and I say they're all my favorite when they're asleep. I love all of them.
Aren't they?
All of them. I go look at them. I'm like, oh, I love all these kids when they're asleep.
Do any of them tell you like, oh, you love them more, or you don't love me as much?
You know, like I believe, like, I feel like I've heard Devin mention this once or twice, but he'll play that I'm just kidding shit. And I'm like, no, now you're about to get cussed out. Don't play with me. But, you know, he does it a lot to my husband. Like, he will say, like, like for instance, everyone knows that my husband gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and so does my middle son and my daughter. They all three of them get up at 4. And me and Devin, we gotta at least wait till like 6-ish. But like if he goes somewhere in the morning, like since they get up early, sometimes he'll take the two little ones to breakfast. And when me and Devin wake up, they're gone. And Devin will like send Tyler a text and be like, "Oh, I see who your favorite is." Like
Oh
so
my
he
God.
he says it often. Like he'll say like little stuff like, "Oh, I see who your favorite is," but to only to his dad. He doesn't say it to me much, but he says it, and he says he's playing. But I'm starting to think that
He's
there's
really
a
feeling it.
reason he's saying that.
If you say it an X amount of times, it's bound to be
That's what I
true.
tell him all the time. Yeah. So. That,
How funny.
My oldest will try to play that whole thing too, like, oh, so and so's your favorite. He used to, but I I feel like it has kind of lessened recently. And it's funny because I used to always say, I love you guys all equally. But then in that
that
book,
book
I
it said,
read
"Do not
that
say."
it says equal means less. So apparently,
What?
by saying like that you love them equally can make the older one feel like you love them less because, like Marianne said, like the older one was there longer. They feel like you
Like
should
I
have some
fought for
type of
this role.
loyalty, you know, like
Yeah.
I was here first kind of thing. So they say to make them feel like they're each your favorite. So basically by telling, like me, if I told my older one, like, you're you're my favorite Jack, you know, like life would not be the same without you, you know, like you bring so much joy to our family, or you're funny, or you're silly, and like basically telling them that they're your favorite blank like person, you know, like
You're
there's
better at this.
your
And he's better at
yeah,
this.
like your highlight them, but
Yeah.
don't put the other one down,
But
because then you don't want them to like be like, oh yeah, even mom said I'm better at football than you know.
yeah.
But like it's basically saying, like, so like with my middle one, I have to do this a lot to him, like, okay, like he'll be sad and I'm like, Max, you're my favorite Max, you know, like where would we be without you? Our family would be boring without you. Like you're crazy and you're funny and you're wild, and you know, you love to dance and whatever. Like I just tell him that, and then he like laughs, and then he feels special. It's the weirdest thing, but
Yeah.
it freaking works, you know.
Right.
I mean, or it seems to be working. And like my oldest, I'll tell him that he's my favorite firstborn, and like I'll tell him like what he brings to the table, or you know. But that's what it advises. It's hard to remember all this shit because this is not what my parents did. They
It's
were
hard
just
to
like,
raise
grow up.
fucking kids. It's hard to do that. Let's say
I know.
that. And make sure that they come out good, like when they get older and they're not off. It's hard work.
So really quick, I want to read this quote from that book because I'm telling you, this is what I want in life. Okay, it says, "Imagine a
We're gonna get
world."
the book
I'm gonna link it. It says,
now.
"Imagine a world in which brothers and sisters grow up in homes where hurting isn't allowed, where children are taught to express their anger at each other sanely and safely, where each other is valued as an individual, not in relationship to the others, where cooperation rather than competition is the norm, where no one is trapped in a role, where children have daily experience and guidance in resolving their differences." And that is what I want. I want
Amen to
them.
that. We
Oh,
want
the
it. We
competition
want
thing, like healthy competition, you know, like my kids are always competing, and I'm just like, we can, we can all be winners, and
it. Man, I'm
it's
telling you,
horrible. It's like I
that works.
want them to know that they could be winners and all that, but then I also want them to know how to lose,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, like with dignity. Like, okay, you lost. You could do better the next time. Just keep practicing.
Just give him a high five, damn it.
Yeah. There's no trophies for everybody. Or what is that? That whole thing? Everybody gets a
Everyone gets
medal.
a, yeah. My husband hates that.
What is
No.
it?
Like,
Is that the
like,
Everybody
same as
gets a
there's no
medal.
I in team? Or no?
no. Like,
There's no.
like how kids now are like the sports,
Oh
all the kids
yeah,
get a
Yeah, they
ribbon.
get, oh
He
yeah, they
doesn't
should not
believe
do
in
that.
that. He thinks
yeah,
No,
it's
like a
like,
cooperation
yeah,
medal.
I'm with him. You win some, you lose some.
participation. Yeah, you got to know how to lose, dude.
That's setting them up for failure when they don't get that job and then they act a fool
They're like,
in
where's
the
my
lobby.
ribbon for interviewing?
Right?
Yeah. Alrighty, guys.
Before we go, we want to know how you keep the peace in your home. Is it similar to us? Completely different? Share it in our private Facebook group linked in the show notes below or on our Instagram. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and YouTube so you never miss a show. We'll keep showing up for you as long as we know you're here with us. So see you next week, loves.
Bye.
Bye.